Hello and welcome to this application. My name is Kutemwa Masafwa and I'm an international student at Xavier University of Louisiana in New Orleans. So today we are talking about applying for financial aid as an international student. As I have said many times, I'm on a 100% academic scholarship, so it's very possible for you to go through 4 years of college and not have to spend anything. There are so many funding opportunities and I would love you to take advantage of them. So it seems like there's no downside of applying for financial aid. I mean, it's free money. Even if you can afford college, who would refuse that? But there can be a downside at certain universities because some are not need blind in their admission, and this means that you being able to afford a college plays a very big factor in whether you're admitted or not. So watch out for that even as you apply for financial aid. Okay, so looking at the process of applying for financial aid, if you're using the common application, as you fill it out, under each school, they'll ask you if you intend on applying for need-based financial aid. So that's just a yes or a no. But the process of applying for financial aid is completely different for each and every school. And of course, it will be so because not everyone is going to apply for financial aid. So it's very important that you do your research and you find out how the process is for each and every school, because it is very, very different across schools. And you find that applying for financial aid also has its own separate deadlines. So you really have to keep track of that even as you apply for financial aid. So the most common way to apply for financial aid as an international student is through the CSS Profile, and this is provided for by the College Board. So if you have a College Board account and you log in, it's right on the menu, CSS Profile. So the goodness of the CSS Profile is that it takes into account both income and expenditure. So as you fill it out, you're basically just putting the specific amounts of money that you spent and the specific amounts of money that you gained in the previous financial year, of course, because the college application happens in the middle of the year, so it has to be for a complete year, so that would be for the previous year. So the downside of the CSS Profile is that you have to pay to submit it. You have to pay for every school that you submit it to, but you have to also pay attention, because there are some schools that give CSS Profile fee waivers. So the school would send you a code so that you don't have to pay. So you'd put that code instead of paying to submit the form. So if you check on the financial aid websites, some schools do indicate that they give waivers. So in that case, you would have to email the financial aid office and let them know that the fee that you have to pay to submit the profile is a financial burden on you and your family, and then they would send you the code. And then there are some schools that indicate on their websites that they just don't give fee waivers, and then some schools just don't say anything. In that case, my advice would be still send them an email and find out if they're able to give you a waiver. And then sometimes there's an alternative form that you can submit instead of the CSS Profile called the ISFAA, and that's the International Student Financial Aid Application. It's basically just a paper version of the CSS. So they send the form to you, you print it out, you fill it in, and you email it to them, so you don't have to pay to submit it. But it's not every school that accepts it, so you also need to check on the financial aid websites if they accept it. And then some just don't say anything again. So what I did was, when I noticed that it only says CSS Profile, I would send an email and ask them if they would either give me a waiver or allow me to submit the ISFAA. Then if they say no, then I would have no choice but to submit. But just keep in mind that you might not have to pay for every school that you submit to. So that's for the CSS Profile. And then some schools have their own portal that you can use to apply for financial aid. One of them is Harvard. So it's just like the CSS but tailored to the school, and you won't have to pay. So you just fill in all your financial details and submit it electronically to the school, and it's done. And then there are other schools that will send you a form and you have to print it out, fill it in, and submit it. And this is financial information, so some of them would require the form to be signed by a notary. That's someone who's authorized to give oaths. For me, my pastor did it because he was authorized to give oaths. So you don't necessarily have to go to a court of law. You just need to have someone who's authorized to sign the form. And then it's also important to note how you send the form back to the school, because that's very, very sensitive information, and you don't want it going to other people. So some schools would ask you to fax the form, and then some other schools just have different methods of you submitting that form. Okay, so those would be the three methods of applying. You have the CSS Profile. Some schools have their own portal. Some schools would send you a form that you have to submit and then send to them. And then in addition to this, some schools might ask for more information. most of the time it's just to confirm the figures that you submitted. So some of them would ask you for a bank statement, some of them would ask you for pay statements like from the previous year. So it's just important that you put accurate figures as you fill that out. Obviously, for me, I didn't know those figures. I had to fill that out with my parents, and we had to really go down to the numbers and make sure that those numbers were accurate. So that's a general breakdown of the process of applying for financial aid. It's really not complicated, but if you're applying to multiple universities, it can become a lot. So it's just important that you stay on top of things, you keep track of the processes and the deadlines, as I already said before. So if you're curious about scholarships, I have a video on scholarships. And if you are planning on applying for a full scholarship, it's still important that you apply for financial aid, just because in the case where you end up getting a partial scholarship, the financial aid award can cover for the pending balance. So thank you so much for watching. I would love to hear from you in the comments down below, and don't forget to subscribe if you're new here.